Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. A drop of sunshine today. Comes and goes, but it's pushed the temperature up a couple of degrees. We'll have some of that. Today is a chat about what I'm about to do, which includes videos. We've done cattleyas, we've done all sorts of things, and it suddenly dawned on me, despite nearly a quarter of my collection being Dendrobiums, we haven't actually gone over them lately. So first plan is to outline the next month or so. Now, in amongst my Dendrobiums, I'm going to have to divide them into sets. And one set this winter is missing. And that are what I used to call continuous growers in pots. That set no longer exists. That nearly cost me most of my Latorias. Because where they come from, they don't tend to have a true winter as such. It is drier in the so-called winter time, but it's not dry. There's still some rain, and they do come from, sort of tropical type forest areas. So when you read up on them, you sort of think, right, well, we'd better keep them slightly moist or not let them dry for too long. Yeah, that's fine if you've got the temperatures to go with it, and I haven't. So that nearly cost me quite a lot of my Latoria types, and others that grow in a similar manner that are not necessarily Latorias, things like some of the black hair types, and others. There are others in amongst there. So that set is wiped out, and it gets replaced by a generalized term called drier in winter. And then within that, you've got very dry in winter, which are the true winter resters, and those will get long periods between watering and zero food. The others that are drier in winter might still get a bit of food depending on what they're up to. And then I've got an odd little set, which are those that grow in montane forests. It's only a small little set, things like the Cuthbertsonii. They're still going to be allowed to dry, but they won't stay dry for very long at all. And they're on mounts, so they're easily accommodated. So what have we got then? We've got the Latoria types, various, some of which are in a state of recovery. And some of them are actually recovering quite nicely. The one I'm really pleased with was the one I thought I'd totally lost. We'll just have a quick look because I can get at it. Now, this was two tiny little plants that virtually dumped their leaves and had virtually no roots. Well, they've started to grow. I mean, you've got two nice new growths coming on that top one, and a nice little root system for the size of the plant. Bottom one took a bit longer, but has now got a couple of new growths and a few roots poking out in some places. So some of them are recovering, some of them are not doing so well. I've got my Nobili types. They're not going into the dry winter rest set because they're all hybrids. They're just going into the drier in winter set. And then we've got the true winter resters. And in amongst those, you've got the deciduous ones, literally dump all their leaves during the winter time. It can be quite frightening if you're not expecting it. And then we've got those that don't drop their leaves, nonetheless need to dry right out and stay dry for quite a long time. To the extent, in some cases, that they do actually shrivel. It's what they're meant to do. You've got to know the difference between those that should and those that just shouldn't. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do over the next few sort of days, is go over the autumn into winter, of the Dendrobiums I've got. I probably won't film every single one because there's over 50. It would take till Christmas to cover them all. But I'm going to go over examples of each set and what I plan to do. Now, I'm already reducing feed down. None of the Dendrobiums are getting high levels of feed anymore, and instead of feeding like 4 times and then a flush, they're only getting fed twice and then a flush. Within about a week, they'll go down to 1 low feed and a flush, and weaning them off the food, getting them to acclimatise. We're already getting the cooler temperatures. If I don't get any sun on the grow room, it gets up to about 20, 21 degrees, and it's already going down to about 15 at night. 16 last night, wasn't a particularly cold one, and that depends on how wide I open the door when I go to bed. So still haven't got the heater going. I don't need the heater yet, but I got a feeling when this wet, miserable weather disappears and we get a high pressure set in, we're going to go straight from miserable and wet to frost, you know, almost in a couple of days. It's going to happen. So anyway, that's what I'm planning on doing, is dividing them up into sets, and I'll film each set, or examples of each set in turn, and have a chat about how they've done through the summer, you know, and how I'm going to treat them for the next sort of month, 6 weeks or so. Just covering the care, really. You know, things like light levels, watering frequencies, and it will vary, because obviously a mount can't be included in the same frequency as things in pots. And like Noblies, I've got some of each. I've got some mounted ones and some potted ones. So there'll be examples of as many different things as I can do. And I know that as we came into this time last year, this was of great interest. There were a lot of worried people about thinking about going into the sort of winter rest thing. Well, remember that not all Dendrobiums need that full winter rest. And to do that full winter rest, you need to be able to cool them down. Yeah? If you can't cool them down, they might just carry on growing, and they decide, nope, I'm not resting. I'm just not going to do it. Won't, shan't, can't make me, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, we'll have a look into those. I didn't want to do it today because I've had a busy day, which is slowly coming to the end of. But yeah, so I'll start, and also I'm not watering any of my mounts today. They all got done yesterday. So everything yesterday had a relatively low feed level, and then from now on I will have to have different things going on. So some of my mounts, like Tolumnias, are still on the same watering frequency. They still need doing every 2 to 3 days. I've lost the daily requirement now. There's no heat here. I certainly don't need that. And in some cases they might even go 3 or 4 days, simply because they've got lower temperatures, so they won't need the water. I mean, in the growing season, you know, with the heat and everything, they ought to be daily. Some of them might even do better with twice a day, but I can't do that. I haven't got the time. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix, and I mean, there are some that have odd growing patterns that are just strange, that although they should be drier in winter, they don't stop growing. Well, if they don't stop growing and you force them into that sort of semi-dormant state, you'll lose the length of some of your cane. So it's quite important to know the difference, what you're dealing with. Now, I can only go on the ones I've got, you know, and but I'm happy to help out a bit with others that are worried about a particular Dendrobium species. It's difficult for me to start getting into hybrids. Care for hybrids is, you got to know what's in it, you know, and I'm not going to know all the hybrids, and that means I've got to go and look up what went into that hybrid before I can say. Well, you can do that yourself. You don't need me to do it. And then when you get back to the original species that's gone into the hybrid, that I'm okay with. Most of those I can sort of say, but people are going to come up with Dendrobiums I've never even heard of. I'd still have to look it up. So that's life. That's what comes with running a channel. You know, if you offer help, then you have to do a bit of work now and again. I don't mind. So that's what we're going to do over next bit. That won't be all I'm going to do. We will look at other things if there's any new blooms. Not that there's anything lurking at the moment. There's a couple of Tolumnias with spikes. I did see several yesterday. Yeah, this one up here. This one's got a couple of spikes coming up on the left hand side there, and that I am really looking forward to, because that is Tolumnia Peach, and that is one of my absolute favourites. So we've got 2 spikes coming there. There may be more, because those spikes are coming off new growths, and there are other new growths that haven't got spikes yet that may follow. Yep, there's another one there. I've just spotted another one. So on the right hand side there's a third. So that's 3 spikes on one plant. That's going to be good, and that is one of my favourites. And there's another little one up here. This is the one that can't make up its mind whether it wants to grow upright or upside down, so it does both at the same time. I think that plant is actually separated. I think there's actually 2 plants there, but we got 1 spike on the upright one, which I was pleased that we got one of those, because the others had all gone upside down. And the spike that's come out of the growth that's upside down is heading skywards. So we have got some Tolumnia spikes lurking. Not many, considering how many I've got, but I've still got some Tolumnias that are in a state of rescue. You know, it's struggling little beasties. This one here is far from a happy bunny. I'll bet this is one of the Christmas ones. Yes, it is. I just won't. I've already lost. I think I've lost 2 already out of 5, and this one don't look far behind. The latest growth is that little one at the front, and that's not growing. That's just stopped. They just didn't seem very strong plants. Anyway, that one's not gone yet. That may well pick up. So they're not all in good growth. Most are, though. I mean, I do have some that look very weak and wispy, like this one. And this has never grown well. I do believe it may have bloomed, but it just won't get going. You know, it's got a little root system. It's only a tiny little plant. I mean, it's grown quite a few roots out across the mount and down in underneath. It just doesn't seem to want to get going at the moment. Although its latest growth, sort of in the top of the shot, is quite good. It's the best one it's had so far, anyway. So that's a quick look at some of those anyway while I was picking one up. And here comes the rain again. Did I just say 10 minutes ago that we're having a spot of sunshine? Yeah. Didn't last long, did it? That's about how it's been lately. You're lucky to get any sun, and when you get some, that's it. Half an hour to an hour, and then it's gone again. And then comes the rain. I can see blue sky out there, so we should get some more sunshine. Anyway, so that's the plan, is to divide the Dendrobiums up into the sets, and then film some examples of those sets and why they're in that set, because it'll be to do with the care. So it'll be a combination of light levels and watering frequencies and whether or not they're going to get any food at all. So that's the sort of care element with the taking Dendrobiums through the winter. But with the low temperatures that I get for a fair few of them that need it, the others that don't need it will have to be drier in winter. They just don't like the low temperatures and soggy roots. So I need to get those divided, yeah, so that I'm clear this year when I go in. I mean, there's things like this one, just as an example. Now this is it's got a name, but it looks a right mess because of the raffia on there. But when I repotted it just wouldn't sit up. It's growing a nice new growth. Now this has got Farmeri and Griffithianum in it. If you have a look on the Facebook group, those of you who are on there, Christine Trinder has just posted a nice picture of one of these types in bloom. And they are very attractive when they bloom. I just hope hers lasts a bit longer than mine do, because I'm lucky to get 12 days out of my spikes. They really do go over fast. But they look gorgeous. But this one, I've just watered it, that's why it's wet now. You know, that's drier in winter. And it really does need to get dry. I lost roots on that one last year. It stayed wet too long. And when I water it, from now on, it's not going to get a soak. It's going to get a trickle. We'll go over what I mean by a trickle water. It's just looking at the pot you know. And if it's still damp in the bottom of the pot, but most of the roots are in the top of the pot, just a trickle round where the roots are. Not enough to, you know, start increasing the water in the bottom of the pot, which is already wet. So it takes a bit of care and a bit of practice. So we'll have a go at that lot. I was just looking round, there's nothing else new, But, as I said, I've got a couple of cloud forest dendrobiums, they're the exception. And I've got some that the books say need a dry winter's rest, which I dispute. So we'll have some exceptions as well. I'll have to say why, obviously. And it'll be based on one that I've got and what I've done with it and the results. Well, not sort of making it up as I go along. So it'll be based on what I've, you know, managed to achieve with certain plants and the care they had to achieve it. So we'll see how we go. And I've got things to do on the computer now. So see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.